Hi, this is Nick from Canaweld coming at you today from our office in Vaughan, Ontario. Today we're doing part 2 of our video that we started last week about welding on cast aluminum. So last week, as I mentioned, I had a customer that's interested in buying our TIG ACDC pulse because he wants to start a business repairing these because they crack all the time. I went out to help him out and I was going to show him how easy it is to weld on them, and it turns out that I had no idea how to weld on them. So like I mentioned in the last video, I reached out to some experts here in Toronto. I reached out to some of our Canaweld team. I even called them Cast Aluminum Foundry, and we found out the right process to do and what we're going to do. So last week we discussed all the mistakes I made. Today we're going to talk about how we're going to do this right now that we've developed a process for it. Hopefully this works and it goes well today so I can teach it to my customer. Then hopefully he buys the machine, and then hopefully his business is very successful after that. So the first thing that we're going to do today is take our angle grinder and we are going to grind these cracks the best we can. Now these cracks are a little bit irregular and they sort of go around like in a circular shape, but we're going to do the best we can to remove all of the dirt, all of the paint, everything that we can get out of there. I'm not too worried about the paint. We can always hit it with some spray paint afterwards. After we do that, I picked up this bottle of acetone from our good friends down at Hallmark Hardware. You can go see them anytime. They carry Canaweld products based out of Markham and Scarborough. So I got this acetone from them for a really great price, and we're going to use that and we're going to clean the whole area as best we can. We're going to let it dry. I mentioned last week that what I wanted to do was preheat this with an oxyacetylene setup, but I actually wasn't able to get that in time. So what we're going to do is our backup plan, where we're going to use our TIG torch with no filler, and we're going to walk it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and we're going to preheat this case as much as humanly possible. I'm going to try to get it up to about 200, 250, maybe 300 degrees, and then we're going to weld it. And so what I learned about the welding, even after with all that prep, it's still not going to weld very nicely because there's a lot of impurities. So we're going to lay down our bead in here. Hopefully it comes out pretty good. But then we're going to keep re-welding over top of it. We're going to keep drawing out all that dirt and all that grossness that we couldn't get out with the grinding and with the acetone. Once we finally have a result that we like, that's going to be it. But we don't want this to cool down quickly. So just here in the regular atmosphere inside the office, it's going to cool down a little bit too quick. Ideally, you would have sort of like a kiln or something like that you could put the part in and slowly bring down the temperature, or you could have some fire blankets. I did a little bit of research from my guys out in the field, and the guys out in the field tell me that you can use some welding gloves and a welding jacket. You can wrap it up, try to hang on to that heat for as much as possible. And once it's all cooled off, it should be okay. And that's it. So we're going to get busy with that right now. Like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is grab the angle grinder. We're going to do some grinding. We're going to get some shots of what it looks like before we start, and then we're going to get busy. You guys are going to watch me do this, but we're going to fast forward through a lot of the, the grinding, the re-welding over and over and over again, so we can keep this to a fairly condensed video. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and hopefully it comes out well, because this is my first time doing this process. Okay, so as you can see, here's the first crack along here, and you might notice it looks a little bit built up. That's where I was trying to preheat it last week, just as a little experiment with no filter. Let's come around and look at this other side where the crack is a bit more obvious. And you can see it goes from right here all the way down to the side. So it's a pretty gnarly crack. We're going to remove as much of this paint as possible, and then we're going to clean the heck out of it with the acetone, then we're going to preheat, then we're going to weld. Okay, so I just showed you guys the cracks that we're going to be working on. I got my angle grinder here, I got a buffing wheel, I got my safety glasses, I threw my welding jacket over top of my TIG machine because I don't want to get all that dirty dust in there, and we backed the camera up a little bit so we don't mess that up either. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to grind this side, I'm going to grind this side, and then we're going to bring the camera back and I'm going to show you guys how far I went with it, what kind of a job I did on it, and that'll hopefully help you gauge how much you need to do based on my results at the end. So let's get our glasses on and let's get busy. It's going to get pretty loud. Okay, move to the other side. This side's going to be a bit trickier.
Okay, so as you can see, we did the best we could to get in here. Our grinding wheel is a little bit blunt to get into some of these areas, but hopefully the acetone is going to carry it the rest of the way. Let's take a quick look on the other side. Something you might want to note with your eye, hopefully the camera's picking it up, but you see this, how this is where I hit it before with no filler metal. See all the holes in it? It looks like an arrow bar when you crack one in half. That's all the impurities in this cast aluminum. So when I was mentioning before, we're gonna have to keep welding over and over and over top of it to draw it out. This is what we're trying to avoid, because this is gonna have no strength with all these bubbles in it, and we need this to be strong again for our customer. So it's gonna take some working, but we're off to a decent start. So next, let's hit it with some acetone, and after that, let's get busy on the preheat.
Okay, so now it's time to clean with our acetone. We got a bunch of paper towels. We're gonna wipe this down as best we can, and hopefully this removes a lot of the oil and grease that's at least on this surface. This stuff is great because it removes just about everything, and it also evaporates very quickly. So you don't have to worry too much if you make it pretty wet. Just wait a couple minutes and it'll be dry again. Really want to work it in there. Make sure we get as much of that surface pollution off. This is going to help us get a nice clean weld. Okay, so we got that wiped down about as good as it's going to go. We're going to let this sit for 5 minutes and evaporate before we start preheating, because I don't want to be burning off this acetone. It stinks. And now we're going to get to the tricky stuff as soon as this is all dry. Okay, so we got this thing grinded. We got this thing wiped down with acetone. I got my TIG torch already. I put a very shallow point on the end of my green tungsten. And now what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to do plan B for the heating. We're going to walk back and forth along this casing, just on this side. And we're going to try to heat it up to what we wanted is somewhere between 200 and 300 degrees. And hopefully that helps us get a really nice bead. So, like I said, I'm going to walk it back and forth, heat this up, heat this up, heat this up. Once I think it's good, then we're going to hit it with the filler metal, and hopefully it welds. Some of you that are a bit more astute may have noticed there's this giant clamp on here now. The reason is, this neck part is what's cracked, and I need that this neck has the bearing inside that will hold the shaft that this motor is going to twist. So we got to clamp it down real tight because I want this to be a nice, good fit again, so that way, once I weld it and we put the shaft back in, everything spins nice and true. So, that being said, let's get down with the preheating and test it out and see how it goes. Okay, time to start heating up. Okay, so we've been preheating back and forth along the crack. Feels like it's pretty darn hot to me. I'm in a bit of an awkward position here because I need to keep everything clamped. So we're going to weld this crack not in one continuous, but we're just going to work our way through it as best we can. Right now, from where I've been preheating, the whole top part of it looks like an arrow bar because that's all the impurities in there. So we're going to have some work to do to get this nicely finished. But let's see how our bead goes, and then after that, we'll worry about the rest. So one piece at a time. So now we're ready to start welding. Try to brace myself on this chair so I can get comfy. So the flex heads are nice. I have a hook on my tank. Okay, let's see how we do. Okay, let's make a few adjustments to our machine. We're not quite getting what we want. Let's pull it up. I'm running 115 amps. I think I want to go a bit higher. So we got our post flow of gas set at 0.5. Got our upslope at 0 because I want that power immediately. Got our amps at 115. We're going to turn that up to 125. Downslope 0. Post flow of gas, I'm going to run a full 10 seconds because I don't want this cooling off too quick. And let's see how that goes. And if we're still having trouble, then we'll start tweaking out our AC balance. Okay, we're getting there. It's filling up, but it sure doesn't weld the way aluminum normally welds. It's a dirty process. We're gonna have to keep going over it, going over it, going over it. First, I got a few more little areas I want to smooth out and fill in. So let's keep going for the moment, and we'll just have to see how it comes out. Okay, eating up my tungsten a bit, which I don't love. Let's just push it out. The soldier on here. Could use a little more stick out just because it's a tough corner to get into.
Alright, we'll actually pull this off. It's a minute left. I'm gonna keep this too tight because it's really hot. I want to mess everything up. It's a lot of filling there, just smooth out a little bit. Okay, so we got that looking pretty good. Now, like I mentioned before, it is hot, and you can hear it clicking. I do not want this to cool off super duper fast because it's gonna crack all that stuff. So now, we need to slow that down. So let's take this off, get it out of the way. And this is a little trick I got from some of the guys out in the field. We're gonna use some old welding gloves. Wrap that up. We're going to put our leather jacket over top of it to hold everything in place. And we're going to let that sit for as long as we can, really. I want to be able to show it to you guys, so we're probably going to come back and visit this in about 2 hours, and we'll get a look at it. But before that, I'm going to leave it wrapped up because I want this to cool off slowly, very slowly. And after that, we'll be able to wrap up the video. So we'll check back in with you guys real soon.
Okay, so as you can see, it's not like a traditional weld. We got it smoothed out as best we could. I don't see too much of that arrow bar. Let's check on this side. Get that in focus. Yeah, it's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but once we hit it with the grinder, I believe that this will hold. I know that we didn't damage the bearings and the shaft will still spin. And those cracks are definitely covered up. So hopefully this works for our customer. And with a bit more practice, hopefully we can get a little bit nicer results next time.
Okay, so that was welding cast aluminum with the TIG ACDC Pulse D. All in all, I think it went pretty well. It's not beautiful, but it's also the first time I've ever done it. And I do have confidence that we got the preheating enough and that we got deep into those cracks and that it should be stronger than it ever was before. So once this is all cooled down, I'm probably gonna wait until tomorrow. We're gonna bring it back to the customer. I'm gonna put a shaft in it, put it back into where it needs to go, and we'll test it out and see what kind of a life it's got. So that's gonna take a few weeks before I find out all the information. I will give you guys an update later on to let you know exactly how this project turned out, but we're gonna have to wait a bit and get these electric motors back into action. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. We're gonna keep doing more videos like this that are a little bit different with different projects. So if you have any ideas or something that you're having a hard time with welding, hit us up in the comment section, and if I can, I'll try to get my hands on some and we'll learn how to do it together. So in the meantime, guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, and you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And until I catch you guys next week, stay safe out there and keep having a lot of fun. Thank you.